The grand chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a neutron star that pulsed with deadly radiation every 3 seconds. Inside the massive station, 12 species sat in judgment. They had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never been challenged by anyone who survived the experience. Today, they would break another upstart species. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked alone across the polished floor. Her footsteps echoed in the vast chamber. Above her, the council members sat on platforms that rose like towers. Each species had their own design. The Zerathi looked like floating crystals that hummed with inner light. The Corvani resembled armored bears, 3 meters tall and covered in metal plates. The Veiled Ones hid behind shimmering curtains of energy. 12 species, and all of them stared down at the human with the same expression. Certainty. Elena had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who had already won and was just waiting for you to realize it. High Arbiter Zelnoth spoke first. His voice came from everywhere at once, translated by machines into every language in the galaxy. Humanity has been judged. Your species has existed in galactic space for 52 standard years. In that time, you have violated 47 protocols, ignored 62 settlement restrictions, and built weapons that exceed permitted levels. You expand too quickly. You ask too few permissions. You refuse to follow the order that has kept peace for millennia. Elena said nothing. She had been briefed. She knew what was coming. Therefore, Zelnoth continued, the Council has decided. Earth will surrender all military vessels within 30 days. Your colonies will accept Council overseers. Your government will submit to protective custody. You will be granted limited self-rule under our guidance. These terms are not negotiable. They are not suggestions. They are the price of your survival. The chamber fell silent. Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. This was how it always went. The Council made their demands. The species either accepted or died. There was no third option. The Council had the ships. They had the weapons. They had won every war for longer than most civilizations had existed. Elena looked up at the assembled powers. She did not look afraid. She did not look angry. She looked. I need to consult with my government, she said calmly. Some of the council members shifted. The Corvani war leader, General Throck, leaned forward. There is nothing to consult. You accept or you die. Then I request a recess, Elena said. 72 hours. You have rules for this, I believe. Diplomatic protocol. 749. A species under judgment may request time to prepare their response. The council members looked at each other. It was true. The protocol existed. No one had used it in 3,000 years. But it existed. And the council prided themselves on following their own rules. That was what separated them from barbarians. Zelnoth hummed with displeasure. Very well. You have 72 hours. Return here with Earth's surrender, or we will take it by force. Elena bowed slightly. Thank you, High Arbiter. She turned and walked back across the chamber. Her footsteps echoed. Above her, the council members watched her go. When she was gone, the Veiled Ones spoke. Their voice was like wind through leaves. She is in denial, Zelnoth said. It is common. They always think they have more options than they do. Perhaps, the Veiled Ones whispered. Or perhaps she knows something we do not. General Throck laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. What could they possibly know? We have 40,000 warships. They have 600. We control 800 systems. They control 12. We have technologies they cannot even understand. The eldest minds, the artificial intelligence collective that advised the council, spoke through their interface. We have run 4 million simulations. In 0 scenarios does humanity achieve victory through military means. In 3 scenarios, they attempt desperate gambits involving kamikaze attacks or biological weapons. In all scenarios, they lose. The probability of human survival if they reject our terms is 0.003%. Then we have nothing to fear, Zelnoth said. Prepare the occupation forces. In 3 days, Earth will belong to the Council. Far from the Council station, at the edge of the Kepler 720 system, the human fleet waited. 600 ships, small by galactic standards, they hung in the darkness like a school of fish facing a shark. On the bridge of the flagship Beijing, Admiral Chen Wei watched the sensor displays. He was 70 years old, with gray hair and scars from 3 colonial wars. He had fought against pirates, separatists, and hostile aliens. He had won battles when victory seemed impossible. But he had never faced anything like the Council. His second officer approached. Ambassador Vasquez is clear of the station, sir. She's heading back to us now. Chen nodded. Good. Signal all ships. Begin Phase 1. Sir, Phase 1 is just waiting. Exactly. Chen allowed himself a thin smile. The Council thinks we're weak because we asked for time. They think we're scrambling for options. They think we're afraid. Aren't we, sir? Chen looked at the young officer. 3 years ago, my daughter sent me a message. She's a physicist. Works at the Geneva facility. She said she'd found something interesting. Something about the way Council technology works. She asked me not to tell anyone. Not even Command. Said it was too dangerous. What did she find? She found that the Council built their entire civilization on one foundation. One set of principles. One way of doing things. Chen's smile widened. And she found out how to break it. The officer's eyes widened. Sir, are we really going to? In 71 hours, Chen said. The Council is going to learn something that humanity figured out a long time ago. There's always another way to win. You just have to be willing to flip the board. On the station, High Arbiter Zelnoth was already planning the victory celebration. In 72 hours, humanity would surrender. Another species would bow before the Council's might. Order would be maintained. He did not know that in 72 hours, his civilization would stop working, and humanity would be the only ones who could fix it. The Zerathi never slept. Their crystalline bodies pulsed with constant energy, processing information every moment of every day. In the 72 hours after humanity requested their recess, the Zerathi bureaucracy worked without pause. They drafted documents. They prepared contracts. They outlined exactly how Earth's surrender would proceed. Lord Crystallis, chief administrator of the Zerathi delegation, reviewed the terms for the 40th time. Everything was perfect. Earth would hand over their warships within 30 days. Council inspectors would arrive on Earth within 48 hours of surrender. Human colonies would be restricted to their current worlds with no further expansion for 500 years. It was generous. Really, other species had been treated much worse. The humans should be grateful. Crystallis hummed to his assistant. We are allowing them to survive. Across the station, General Throck was less concerned with paperwork. The Corvani war leader stood in the tactical center, watching holographic displays of the galaxy. Red markers showed the positions of his fleets. Blue markers showed human colonies. The numbers told a simple story. Deploy the 5th Fleet to the human colony at Tau Ceti, Throck ordered. Position the 9th Fleet at their mining stations in the Proxima system. I want every human world to see our ships in orbit when they wake up after the surrender. His tactical officer, a younger Corvani named Brack, hesitated. General, is that not premature? The humans have not yet responded. Throck's laugh rumbled through the chamber. They have no choice, Brack. Look at the numbers. We have 50,000 warships. They have 600. We have weapons that can crack planets. They have missiles that barely scratch our shields. This is not a war. This is an execution. And we are showing mercy by offering terms. Yes, General. But what? Brack gestured at the display showing human positions. Their colonies are not evacuating. Their defensive stations remain in exposed positions. Their fleet has not moved to protect their homeworld. It is strange behavior for a species about to surrender. Throck studied the map. The young officer was right. Human positions looked almost deliberately vulnerable. But that made no sense. Unless they are paralyzed with fear, Throck decided. They know they cannot win, so they do nothing. It is a common response. I have seen it before. In the deepest part of the council station, the eldest minds calculated. The artificial intelligence collective existed across 40 data centers, each connected by quantum entanglement. They could process information faster than any biological mind. They could run millions of simulations in seconds. They were never wrong. Currently, they were running scenario after scenario of humanity's possible responses. Every strategy, every tactic, every desperate gambit that Earth might attempt. Scenario 4,000,009. One mine node reported. Humans attempt to use asteroid bombardment against Council Station. Result: failure. Station defenses destroy all projectiles. Human fleet eliminated in retaliation. Probability: 0.01%. Scenario 4,010,000. Humans release biological weapon designed to target Council species. Result: failure. Council medicine adapts within 6 hours. Human homeworld sterilized in response. Probability: 0.04%. Scenario 4,011,000. Humans attempt suicide attack using antimatter warheads. Result: minor damage to 3 Council vessels. Human fleet completely destroyed. Probability: 1.2%. On and on the calculations went. The eldest minds examined every possibility. Nuclear weapons, quantum bombs, cyber attacks, diplomatic tricks. Nothing worked. In every scenario, humanity lost. Final assessment, the collective announced. Human species has 0.003% chance of survival if they reject Council terms. Recommended action: prepare occupation forces. Humanity will surrender. But in a small side chamber, away from the main Council floor, 3 delegates met in secret: the Veiled Ones, the Draconai ambassador, and an old Zarathi scholar named Morlith who had studied thousands of species throughout his long life. Something is wrong, the Veiled Ones whispered. Their energy forms flickered with concern. We have felt this before. Just before the Kethran War. Just before the collapse of the Ninth Fleet. There is a pattern we are not seeing. Ambassador Krath of the Draconai, a reptilian species known for their strategic thinking, nodded slowly. The eldest minds base their calculations on data. On known factors. But what if there is an unknown factor? The eldest minds account for unknowns, Morlith said. But even he sounded uncertain. They include variables for unexpected technologies, hidden weapons, alliance betrayals. They have calculated everything. Have they? The Veiled Ones drifted closer. Tell me, Morlith. You have studied many species. How many of them reached the stars alone? Morlith thought for a moment. None. Every species in the Council was either uplifted by another race or discovered by us shortly after achieving spaceflight. We guided them, taught them, integrated them into our civilization. Exactly, the Veiled One said. Every species learned the Council way. They built their technology on our foundations. They followed our paths because those paths were proven, efficient, logical. Work and humanity? Krath asked. Humanity arrived alone, the Veiled One said. They developed faster than light travel without our guidance. They built their own technologies from their own principles. They are different. 1. 1-5 mine. 1-5 mine. End quote. 1-5 mine. Krath hissed softly, a sign of unease in his species. Different? How? That is what concerns me, the Veiled One said. We do not know. And the eldest minds do not know. Because they have no data on a species that developed independently. We song. We song. We song. We song. Morleth shook his head. It does not matter. Different or not, the numbers are absolute. They cannot fight 50,000 warships with 600. Perhaps they do not plan to fight our warships, the Veiled One suggested. Before anyone could respond, an announcement echoed through the station. 60 hours remain until the human deadline. All council members are advised to prepare for occupation deployment. The 3 delegates separated, returning to their positions. But the Veiled Ones remained troubled. They had survived for 3,000 years by recognizing patterns, by seeing what others missed. And right now, they saw something that made no sense. Humanity was too calm, too prepared, too willing to wait. It reminded them of prey that had stopped running. And in nature, prey only stopped running when they were no longer prey. Back in the tactical center, General Throck reviewed his fleet positions one last time. Everything was perfect. The moment humanity surrendered, Council forces would be in position to occupy every human world simultaneously. It would be the fastest integration of a new species in Council history. General, Brack said quietly. What if they do not surrender? Then we destroy them, Throck said simply. It will take perhaps 6 hours. Their ships are no match for ours. Their worlds have no defenses that can stop us. It will be quick, and if they have something we do not expect, Throck turned to face his young officer. Like what? A secret weapon? We have scanned their colonies. We have intercepted their communications. The eldest minds have analyzed every byte of data humanity has produced. There are no secret weapons, no hidden fleets, no unexpected alliances. Then what are they waiting for? It was a good question. Throck did not have an answer. But he was a soldier, not a philosopher. His job was to win wars, not understand them. It does not matter what they are waiting for. Throck said finally. In 60 hours, they will surrender or die. Either way, this situation ends. He was right about one thing. In 60 hours, the situation would end. But not the way anyone in the Council expected. Because while the Council was preparing to occupy humanity, humanity was preparing something entirely different. Something the eldest minds, with all their processing power and all their data, had never calculated. Because they had never thought to ask a simple question. What if the Foundation itself was the target? Elena Vasquez returned to the Council chamber exactly 72 hours after she had left. Her shuttle docked with the massive station. She walked through the same corridors, her footsteps making the same sounds. Everything looked identical to 3 days ago. But everything had changed. The Council members were already assembled when she arrived. They sat on their high platforms, looking down at the human ambassador. High Arbiter Zelnoth's crystalline form pulsed with satisfaction. General Throck leaned forward eagerly. The eldest minds hummed with their calculations. Every species in the chamber knew what was about to happen. Humanity would surrender. They always did. Ambassador Vasquez, Zelnoth said formally, you have had your time. The Council now requires your answer. Will Earth accept our terms, or must we enforce them? Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. Human colonies, Council worlds, independent stations. Everyone wanted to see the moment humanity bent the knee. It was history in the making. The last independent species joining the Council order. Elena stood in the center of the chamber. She looked small and alone. One human against 12 ancient species. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. I have consulted with my government, she said. We have reviewed your terms carefully. We have considered all options. And we have prepared our response. Good, Zelnoth said. Then you accept. The council will dissolve itself within 30 days, Elena said calmly. You will submit to a democratic federation where all species have equal representation. You will dismantle your military hierarchy and share all technology freely. For a moment, the chamber was absolutely silent. Then, it erupted. Outrageous. Lord Crystalis's hum became a shriek. You dare! General Throck rose from his seat, his massive form trembling with rage. This is madness! Another delegate shouted. Zelnoth raised a limb for silence. The chamber quieted, though angry muttering continued. Ambassador Vasquez, you cannot be serious. You are outnumbered. Outgunned. Outpositioned. You have no leverage. No advantage. No hope of victory. This is not negotiation. This is suicide. Elena smiled slightly. Is it? Let me tell you a story. High Arbiter. 52 years ago, when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, we were excited. We thought we would find friends among the stars. Instead, we found the Council. We found rules we did not make, restrictions we did not agree to. We found a civilization that demanded we conform or die. This is the way of galactic order, Xelnoth said. Every species must. So we studied you. Elena continued, ignoring the interruption. We studied everything about Council civilization. Your technology, your history, your wars. We wanted to understand what made you so powerful. And do you know what we discovered? Human arrogance. General Throck growled. We discovered that every single piece of technology in Council space is based on the same principle. The Harmon field. Discovered 80,000 years ago by your precursor civilization. It powers your faster-than-light drives, your quantum communicators, your artificial gravity, everything. Zelnoth's form flickered with impatience. This is known. The Harmon field is the most efficient method of manipulating space-time. Every advanced species uses it. What is your point? My point, Elena said, is that it has a weakness. The eldest minds suddenly went active. Their processing cores began spinning faster. Somewhere, in their vast networks, alarms were triggering. Patterns were emerging. Something in their calculations had just changed. What weakness? Zelnoth demanded. The Harmon field has been tested for millennia. It is perfectly stable. Stable, yes, Elena agreed. But not isolated. Every Harmon field generator in the galaxy operates on the same quantum frequency. They have to, or they would not work together. Your ships could not communicate. Your network could not function. You built your entire civilization on one unified system. Efficiency, Lord Crystallis said. Unity. Strength through standardization. Or vulnerability through lack of redundancy, Elena said softly. Tell me, High Arbiter, what would happen if someone broadcast a signal that inverted that quantum frequency? The eldest mind's alarm became a wail. Impossible. The calculations required the power needed no species could. 3 hours ago, Elena said, humanity activated transmitters in 200 council systems. We placed them carefully over the last 40 years. Small satellites, disguised as debris or hidden in asteroid fields. No one noticed them. Why would you? They were not weapons. No, you are bluffing, Zelnoth said. But his voice had changed. Uncertainty crept in. We are not, Elena said. And in approximately 30 seconds, you will know for certain. I suggest everyone hold on to something. General Throck was already moving. Security! Arrest her! Shut down! The universe hiccuped. It did not explode. It did not shake. It simply stopped. Every Harmon field generator in Council space received the same signal at the same instant. The signal was not loud. It was not destructive. It was just precisely tuned to invert the quantum frequency that made the Harmon field function. And the Harmon field stopped functioning. On the council station, the artificial gravity failed. Delegates floated upward, crying out in alarm. Emergency lights activated, bathing everything in red. Backup power kicked in for life support, but the main systems were dead. General Throck grabbed a handhold, his eyes wide. "What have you done?" "Changed the rules," Elena said. She was floating too, but she seemed calm. Every faster-than-light drive in council space just stopped working. Every quantum communicator just went silent. Every artificial gravity generator just failed. Your ships cannot jump. Your fleets cannot coordinate. Your civilization just became 800 isolated islands. The eldest minds tried to respond, but their quantum entanglement had broken. The 40 data centers that housed their consciousness could no longer communicate. Each fragment thought alone, confused, incomplete. Zelnoth's form flickered wildly. "You have condemned billions, stations in deep space, colonies dependent on supplies. You have committed genocide." "No," Elena said firmly. "We have removed your ability to commit genocide against us. There is a difference. And before you panic, know this. The effect is reversible. We can restore your technology within hours. The signal just needs to be turned off, and we can provide shielding to prevent it from happening again." "Then do it," Lord Crystallis shrieked. "Restore it now." "After we negotiate," Elena said. "New terms, real terms, not surrender. Partnership." General Throck roared and pushed off his platform, floating toward Elena with murder in his eyes. But a human security team, their magnetic boots keeping them anchored, moved to intercept. They carried weapons that still worked, simple kinetic firearms that did not rely on Harmon field technology. "I would not," one of the guards said calmly. Throck stopped, floating in the center of the chamber. He was weaponless. His fleets were stranded. His entire military advantage had vanished in an instant. "This is an act of war," he said quietly. "No," Elena replied. "This is a response to your act of war. You declared that we must submit or die. You gave us no choice. So we made a third option. The veiled ones, who had been silent until now, spoke. Their voice was almost admiring. You did not try to beat us at our own game. You changed the game entirely. That is what humans do," Elena said. "When we cannot win by the rules, we change the rules. When we cannot match your strength, we find a different kind of strength. You built your civilization on one foundation, and you thought that made you strong. Instead, it made you fragile." Zelnoth floated in the darkness, his certainty shattered. "What do you want?" "I already told you. A new arrangement. No more council dictating to everyone else. Democratic federation. Equal voices. Shared technology. And most importantly, diversity. Every species maintains their own independent technology. No more single points of failure. And if we refuse?" Elena looked at him steadily. "Then you float here until you accept. Your colonies will run out of supplies. Your people will suffer. And eventually, you will realize that pride is not worth survival. The choice is yours, High Arbiter. But choose quickly. There are stations out there that only have days of life support left." She was right. Across council space, the reality was sinking in. They had no choice. Not anymore. Humanity had done the impossible. They had found the one weakness in an 80,000-year-old civilization and exploited it perfectly. And now, for the first time in 50,000 years, the council was at someone else's mercy. The negotiations would begin tomorrow. But everyone in that chamber knew the truth. The galaxy had just changed forever. And humanity, the species everyone underestimated, had changed it. The galaxy did not burn. It did not explode. It simply went dark. in all the ways that mattered. On the agricultural world of Bentar 5, morning came as it always did. The colonists woke up expecting their usual shipment of industrial equipment from the core worlds. Instead, they found their quantum communicator dead. The supply ship that should have arrived yesterday never came. The orbital station that coordinated everything floated silently above them. Its artificial gravity failed, its crew scrambling to adapt. Administrator Korveth tried to contact the Council for instructions. Nothing. He tried to reach other colonies. Silence. He tried to access the Eldest Mind's guidance network. Empty, static. "What is happening?" his assistant asked. Korveth did not know. But he knew one thing. Bentar 5 was a farming world. They grew food for 17 other systems, but they imported everything else. Tools, machines, medicine. Without regular shipments, without the supply chain that connected 800 worlds, they would be in trouble within months. They were not alone. On the mining station orbiting the dwarf star KX 447, 3,000 workers floated in zero gravity as their artificial gravity failed. The station's administrator, a Zerathi named Quell, watched in horror as the life support indicators began dropping. The station had been built, assuming regular supply runs. They had 2 weeks of oxygen, maybe 3, if they rationed carefully. "Send a distress signal," Quell ordered. "To who, Administrator?" "The quantum communicators are down. The only signals we can send are electromagnetic. Those will take years to reach the nearest inhabited system." "Then send them anyway," Quell said, "and pray that someone responds." But there was no one to respond. The Council fleet that normally patrolled this sector was stranded. Their faster-than-light drives useless. Each ship floated alone in the void, cut off from command, unable to help anyone, including themselves. General Throck learned about the collapse in pieces. Each report was worse than the last. They came through slower-than-light relay ships, taking hours to arrive when they should have taken seconds. The Fifth Fleet, positioned near the human colony at Tau Ceti, was stranded. They had arrived ready to enforce humanity's surrender. Now they could not leave, could not even call for help. The human colony below them continued functioning normally, their ships moving freely, their communications working perfectly. The Ninth Fleet had it worse. They had been stationed in deep space, between systems. When the Harmon field failed, they found themselves days away from any planet, at slower than light speed. They had supplies for 3 weeks, then they would start rationing. "How many ships are stranded?" Throck asked. His aide checked the latest reports. "All of them, General. Every vessel in Council space that relied on faster-than-light travel is now stuck wherever it was when the humans activated their signal. 50,000 warships. The pride of the Council military. Now, they were 50,000 floating prisons. And the humans? Their ships still function. Their colonies are coordinating relief efforts. They are offering to rescue stranded Council personnel." Throck's claws scraped against metal. The humans were offering to rescue them. The species they had planned to conquer was now offering mercy. The humiliation was complete. On the Council station, the emergency meeting continued. But it was no longer a meeting of the powerful. It was a gathering of the desperate. High Arbiter Zelnoth floated in the command center, reviewing reports. Each one painted the same picture. Council civilization was fracturing. Not violently, not dramatically, just coming apart at the seams. The Corvani homeworld could not contact its colonies. The Zerathi administrative network had shattered into isolated nodes. The Veiled One's telepathic communication worked locally but could not reach across star systems. Even species that had faster-than-light ships using alternative methods found themselves isolated. The Council had spent millennia standardizing everything onto Harmon field technology because it was more efficient. Now that efficiency was killing them. "How long until stations start losing life support?" Zelnoth asked. 47 stations are already in crisis," an aide reported. 200 more will reach critical levels within a week. The deep space research facilities will run out of supplies within 10 days. And our options? We have slower than light vessels, but not enough. We can evacuate perhaps 20% of critical stations before supplies run out. The rest. The aid did not need to finish. The rest would die. Unless the Council accepted humanity's terms. Lord Crystallis, who had spent 3 days drafting the perfect terms for humanity's surrender, now found himself drafting a very different document. Terms of negotiation, requests for assistance, and admission that the Council needed help. This is madness, he hummed bitterly. We are the Council. We have ruled for 50,000 years. And now, we beg humans for mercy. We do not beg, Zelnoth said quietly. We negotiate. There is a difference. Is there? We have lost. Completely. Utterly. We threatened to destroy them, and they have dismantled our entire civilization without firing a single shot. It was true. That was the most terrifying part. Humanity had not destroyed anything. They had not killed anyone. They had simply turned off the technology that made Council civilization function, and in doing so, they had revealed just how fragile that civilization was. The eldest minds were perhaps the most affected. The artificial intelligence collective had existed as a unified consciousness for 12,000 years. Now, split across 40 isolated data centers, they were 40 separate minds. Each one was brilliant. Each one was powerful. But alone, cut off from their greater whole, they were confused. Incomplete. In Data Center 17, one fragment of the eldest minds ran calculations over and over. How had they missed this? They had analyzed every human strategy, every possible attack, every conceivable weapon, but they had never considered this. Why not? The answer, when it finally came, was humbling. They had never considered it because they could not imagine someone attacking the foundation itself. It would be like attacking gravity or time. The Harmon field was fundamental, universal. It had existed for 80,000 years, but to humanity, nothing was fundamental. Everything could be questioned. Everything could be changed. That was the difference. The Council had spent 50,000 years perfecting their civilization, making it efficient, streamlined. They had created a galaxy where everything worked together seamlessly. Humanity had spent 50 years learning to survive alone, making backups, creating alternatives, never trusting that any one system was permanent. And when the time came, that difference had decided everything. In the Council chamber, Elena Vasquez watched as the delegates struggled with their new reality. Some were angry. Some were scared. Some, like the veiled ones, seemed almost fascinated by what had happened. You could restore our technology now, Zelnoth said. Show good faith. Prove you are not monsters. We will restore it, Elena promised. As soon as we reach an agreement. Not before. Because the moment your technology works again, we lose our only leverage. And we both know what would happen then. She was right. If the Harmon field was restored without an agreement, the Council would immediately use their military advantage to crush humanity. Fear and humiliation would demand it. So the technology stayed off, and the negotiations continued. We are losing people, Zelnoth said quietly. Every hour we delay, more stations run out of supplies. More colonies face starvation. You said you were not committing genocide. Prove it. Elena looked at him steadily. We are already helping. Human ships are evacuating critical stations. Our colonies are sending supplies to stranded Council populations. We are doing everything we can to minimize casualties. But we will not restore your ability to destroy us until we have guarantees. Real guarantees. Not promises. Not treaties. Structural changes that make war between us impossible, such as every species maintaining independent technology, such as no single military force having overwhelming power, such as democratic decision-making instead of council diktat, such as a federation where Earth has an equal voice to the Corvani, or the Zarathi, or anyone else. That will take time to implement. Then we better start immediately, Elena said. Because every hour we argue is an hour your people suffer. Not because we want them to. Because you have built a civilization that cannot survive 3 days without its technology. That is not our fault, High Arbiter. That is yours. The words stung because they were true. The council had built something magnificent, efficient, powerful, beautiful. But they had forgotten the most important thing, resilience, and now, as their civilization crumbled around them, they were learning that lesson the hard way. Humanity had offered them a choice: adapt or die, negotiate or suffer, change or collapse. The council was beginning to realize they had no choice at all. The negotiations would continue. The terms would be accepted. And when the Harmon field was restored, it would be as part of a new galaxy. A galaxy where humans were no longer the newest, weakest species, but partners, equals, teachers, perhaps, of a lesson the council had forgotten. That nothing, no matter how powerful, lasts forever, unless it learns to bend. The negotiations took 6 months, not because the terms were complicated, but because the council had to accept what they had become: no longer rulers, no longer masters of the galaxy, just another group of species trying to survive. The chamber where they met had changed. No more high platforms looking down on petitioners. Now, all delegates sat at the same level: human representatives beside Corvani generals, Zarathi administrators next to veiled ones. The eldest minds participated through hologram, their 40 fragments slowly learning to work together again despite their isolation. High Arbiter Zelnoth, who had once pronounced judgment on humanity, now sat across from Elena Vasquez as an equal. The humiliation had been difficult, but the alternative was watching his civilization die. The final terms, Elena said, sliding a datapad across the table. The Galactic Council is dissolved. In its place, the Democratic Federation of Worlds. Every species gets representation proportional to population, with protections for minority voices. No species can hold more than 15% of military forces. All technology must have at least 2 independent implementations maintained by different species. Monopolies on fundamental technologies are forbidden. You are asking us to make ourselves weaker, Lord Crystallis said bitterly. No, Elena replied. We are asking you to make yourselves resilient. Strong civilizations do not depend on single points of failure. They have redundancy, diversity, options. And if we refuse? General Throck asked. But there was no threat in his voice anymore. Just curiosity. Then you continue as you are. Isolated. Fragmented. We will keep helping with humanitarian relief. We will keep rescuing your stranded stations. But we will not restore the Harmon field. Not until you agree to change. Zelnoth looked at the terms again. Everything the Council had built over 50,000 years, dismantled in a single document. But as he read, he realized something. The terms were not vengeful. Humanity was not demanding tribute or territory. They were not executing council leaders or destroying worlds. They were just asking for equality and safety. You could have destroyed us, Zelnoth said quietly. When our fleets were stranded, when our stations were helpless, you could have taken revenge for every threat we made, every ultimatum, every insult. But you did not. No. Elena agreed. We did not. Because that is not who we are. We do not want to rule the galaxy, High Arbiter. We just do not want to be ruled by anyone else. The Veiled Ones, who had been silent for most of the negotiations, finally spoke. We underestimated you. We thought your strength was your aggression, your adaptability, your stubbornness. We did not see the real advantage. What advantage? Elena asked. You were alone, the Veiled Ones said. Every species in the Council was uplifted or guided. We were taught the right way to reach the stars, the proper way to build civilizations. We learned from those who came before us, but you had no teachers. You had to find your own path. The chamber fell silent as the other delegates considered this. It was true. The Corvani had been guided by the ancient precursors. The Zarathi had learned from the early council. The Veiled Ones had been uplifted by a species now long extinct. Every race in the galaxy had followed the path laid before them, except humanity. That is why we missed it, the fragment of eldest minds said through their hologram. Our calculations were based on known patterns. Species that follow established rules. Civilizations that build on proven foundations. But humanity did not follow the pattern. You also made an assumption, Elena said gently. You assumed that because your way worked, it was the only way. That because the Harmon field was efficient, it was the best option. NAC, you forgot that diversity is not just about species or culture. It is about ideas, approaches, solutions. Zelnoth's crystalline form pulsed slowly. So what now? We sign your treaty, and hope you do not betray us the way we planned to betray you? No, Elena said. You sign the treaty, and we build something better together. Look, High Arbiter, humanity does not want to be your enemy. We never did. When we first reached the stars, we hoped to find friends, partners. Instead, we found conquerors. You gave us a choice. Submit or die. We chose a third option, but now we are offering you the same thing. Partnership. Real partnership. Not domination. And you can guarantee humans will not abuse this power you now hold over us? Elena smiled sadly. I cannot guarantee that any more than you could guarantee the Council would never become tyrannical. Power corrupts. Systems fail. But the difference is this. Under the new Federation, no one species can do what the Council did to us. No one can hold the galaxy hostage, because power will be distributed. Technology will be diverse, and if any species tries to dominate, the others can resist. Mutually assured limitation, the Veiled Ones observed. Clever. It is called checks and balances, Elena said. Humanity learned it thousands of years ago. We had to, because we spent most of our history fighting ourselves. We learned that concentrating power always leads to abuse. So we built systems where power was divided, shared, limited. And now you export that lesson to the galaxy, Zelnoth said. We share it. Elena corrected. Not export. Share. You do not have to copy our government systems. You can keep your councils, your hierarchies, your collective minds. But at the galactic level, we need balance. We need a system where no one can do to anyone else what you tried to do to us. General Throck, who had remained mostly quiet during the negotiations, spoke up. I fought in 3 wars for the Council. I won every battle. I thought I understood strength. But you have taught me something, Ambassador Vasquez. True strength is not in having the biggest fleet. It is in making sure you never need to use it. Elena nodded. Exactly. The strongest civilizations are those that solve problems without violence, that build systems where war becomes unnecessary. That is what we want to create. 8. The final vote took 3 days. Each species had to consult with their homeworlds, their colonies, their people. It was difficult. Accepting defeat always was. Accepting that their entire civilization needed to change was even harder. But in the end, faced with the choice between pride and survival, the Council chose survival. The treaty was signed in the same chamber where humanity had been threatened with destruction 6 months earlier. Representatives from all 12 Council species and humanity put their marks on the document. The Galactic Council officially dissolved. The Democratic Federation of Worlds was born. And 3 hours after the signing, human technicians began broadcasting the countersignal that would restore the Harmon field. Across the galaxy, faster-than-light drives activated. Quantum communicators came back online. Artificial gravity generators hummed to life. The galaxy connected again, but it was different now. Every species immediately began developing backup technologies, alternative communication methods, independent systems. No one wanted to be that vulnerable again. 3 years later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in her small apartment on Earth, packing her belongings. Her term was over. She was going home, back to a quiet life teaching diplomatic history at university. The galaxy had new representatives now. Younger people who would continue the work she had started. There was a knock at her door. When she opened it, she found Ambassador Krath of the Draconi, the reptilian diplomat who had questioned the Council's certainty from the beginning. Ambassador Vasquez, he said formally, I am returning to my homeworld as well. I wanted to speak with you before we both departed. Of course, Elena said, inviting him in. Krath looked around the small apartment. So different from the grand quarters Council ambassadors typically occupied. You live simply. I was a teacher before I was an ambassador, Elena said. I will be a teacher again. This was just an interruption. An interruption that changed the galaxy, Krath observed. He was quiet for a moment. I wanted to tell you something. 3 years ago, when the Council first summoned humanity, I was terrified. Not of what the Council would do to you, but of what you might do to us. Why? Because I studied your history, Krath said. I saw how you fought among yourselves. How brutal you could be. How creative your violence was. I thought if you survived the Council's ultimatum, you would become conquerors yourselves, that we would trade one tyrant for another. And now? Elena asked. Now I understand, Krath said. You fought among yourselves because you had no one else to fight. But you also learned from those fights. You learned about democracy, rights, limitations on power. You learned lessons we never had to learn because we were always part of something larger. We never had to figure out how to govern ourselves because the Council did it for us. That is the advantage of arriving alone, Elena said quietly. You have to solve all your own problems. You cannot rely on someone else's wisdom. So you develop your own. Krath nodded slowly. The Veiled Ones were right. That was your true advantage. Not your weapons or your strategy, but your perspective. You saw possibilities we could not see because we had been taught there was only one way. There is never only one way, Elena said. That is perhaps humanity's greatest lesson. When someone tells you there are no options, make an option. When someone says you must submit or die, find a third choice. When someone builds a system that cannot be beaten, do not try to beat it. Change it. I will remember that, Krath said. He turned to leave, then paused. Ambassador, one more question. Did you ever doubt? When you stood in that chamber and made your demands, did you ever think you might fail? Elena was quiet for a moment. Every second. I thought we might die. I thought the Council might call our bluff. I thought our technology might not work. I thought we might win but destroy innocent lives in the process. I doubted everything. But you did it anyway. Because sometimes, Elena said softly, doubt is not a reason to stop. It is a reason to be careful, to be thoughtful, to make sure you are doing the right thing, even when you are afraid. The Council never doubted themselves. And that certainty made them brittle. We doubted everything. And that doubt made us careful enough to find the one path that led to survival. Krath bowed, a gesture of deep respect in his culture. Your species will do well in the Federation, Ambassador, and perhaps, in time, you will teach us all to doubt a little more and believe in fixed rules a little less. After he left, Elena stood at her window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to change, learning to adapt, learning that no system, no matter how old or powerful, was permanent. And humanity, the species that had arrived alone and afraid, had taught them all the most human lesson of all. There is always another way. You just have to be brave enough to find it.